The Hidden Retirement Trap, Understanding Sequence of Returns, Risk. Picture this scenario in your mind. Two identical retirement stories that unfold in completely different ways, despite starting from exactly the same point. Both Sarah and Mike retired on January 1st, 2025, with exactly $1 million saved and the same disciplined investment strategy in place. They both needed $40,000 annually to live comfortably and maintain their lifestyle during retirement. Both invested in identical index funds and received the exact same 7% average annual return over the full 20-year period. On paper, their stories should have been identical. Same starting point, same returns, same withdrawals. Yet the results were absolutely shocking and revealed a critical truth about retirement planning. The shocking divergence. How identical returns led to opposite outcomes. 15 years into retirement, Mike ran completely out of money and was forced to sell his house just to survive. At that exact same moment in time, Sarah had over $1.4 million remaining in her account and was living comfortably without any financial stress. How is this possible if their returns were mathematically identical? The answer reveals one of retirement's most dangerous and invisible secrets: sequence of returns risk. This isn't luck. This isn't skill. This is pure mathematics working against you in ways that most financial advisors never mention. Most retirement calculators use a dangerously oversimplified formula. Assume a fixed average return, withdraw a fixed amount, and project forward into the future. This approach creates a false sense of security that has destroyed countless retirements. Why order matters more than averages. Here's the critical insight that changes everything. The order of your returns is exponentially more important than their average. When you're in your working years, contributing money every month, the sequence of returns barely matters because you're constantly buying more shares at different prices. But when you switch to retirement and start withdrawing money instead of contributing, the sequence becomes absolutely critical to your survival. A 30% market crash in your first year of retirement is catastrophic. A 30% gain in your first year of retirement is salvation. Mike's cautionary tale, the death spiral. Mike's first 3 years of retirement were devastating beyond belief. He experienced a -5% loss, followed by a -10% loss, then a +20% gain, but in that exact order. With each passing month, he was forced to withdraw $40,000 from his shrinking portfolio to pay his bills and buy groceries. When the market dropped, he had no choice but to sell stocks at exactly the wrong time, locking in losses permanently. This created a vicious cycle called negative compounding, the complete opposite of what builds wealth over time. When you sell an asset at a loss during retirement, that money is gone forever and never gets the chance to recover and grow. His portfolio shrank faster and faster, entering a death spiral that he could never escape no matter what he did. By year 15, the account was completely depleted, and Mike had nothing left to live on. Sarah's fortunate path. Early gains change everything. Sarah received the exact same returns as Mike over the same 20-year period, just in reverse order during her critical first years. She got +20% first, then -10%, then -5%, which meant her portfolio grew substantially before she needed to make significant withdrawals. Her portfolio was allowed to compound at high levels during the market's best years when she didn't need to touch it. Even when the inevitable losses came later, she was drawing from a much larger financial base that could absorb the hits. She benefited from positive compounding early on, which built a financial cushion that protected her through every subsequent market downturn. This cushion meant that even during 15% and 20% market crashes, she still had plenty of money left to sustain her lifestyle. The red zone, your retirement's most critical period. Here's what most people don't understand about retirement risk. The danger is not spread evenly across your entire retirement. Instead, your vulnerability is hyper-concentrated in the first 5 to 10 years, what I call the red zone, because it represents the highest danger zone for your portfolio. In your working years, market crashes are actually gifts to you because you get to buy more shares at significantly lower prices. But in retirement, crashes are absolutely catastrophic because you're forced to sell assets at losses just to pay your monthly expenses. A minus 20% market drop in year 3 of retirement is exponentially more damaging than a minus 20% market drop in year 15 of retirement. This is because the early losses compound backward, permanently reducing the growth base of your portfolio. The bucket strategy: building your defense. The most effective protection against sequence of returns risk is the 3-bucket strategy, which creates a physical and psychological barrier between your daily spending and your long-term growth investments. This strategy segments your money based on when you actually need to use it, creating different safety zones. Bucket 1, the cash moat. Hold 3 to 5 years of your total living expenses in cash or high-yield savings accounts. If the market crashes 30% on day 1 of your retirement, you simply draw from this cash reserve, leaving your stocks completely untouched to recover. You never have to sell stocks at depressed prices because you have cash already set aside for that emergency. This psychological relief alone can reduce panic-driven decisions during market chaos. Bucket 2, the bond buffer. Store 5 to 7 years of your total living expenses in intermediate-term bonds or fixed annuities. These bonds provide a second line of defense against market volatility and losses. If stocks haven't recovered when your cash bucket is running low, you liquidate bonds instead of being forced to sell stocks at a loss. Bonds are more stable and provide a bridge to recovery without locking in permanent losses. Bucket 3, the growth engine. Place everything else in a diversified portfolio of stocks with a 10-plus year time horizon. This money is protected by the first 2 buckets and has plenty of time to survive multiple market recessions. It can fully benefit from compound growth over decades without interruption or forced selling. Each year, if markets are up and your stocks have gained value, you refill your cash bucket from these growth gains. If markets are down, you wait patiently and let your first 2 buckets absorb the shock while stocks recover. This system removes the emotional element and replaces it with a mechanical, proven process. Dynamic withdrawals, the flexible alternative. Most retirement plans assume that you'll withdraw the exact same dollar amount every single year without ever changing it. This rigid approach is dangerous in the red zone and can trigger unnecessary losses when markets are struggling. Instead, you should adopt dynamic withdrawals, which means you adjust your spending based on how your portfolio is actually performing. In good years when markets are up, you might allow yourself a small bonus withdrawal for a vacation or special purchase. In bad years, when markets are down, you commit to cutting your spending by 5 to 10% to protect your core principal. This flexibility is not about suffering, it's about survival and protecting your long-term financial security. Mike could have survived every single market crash if he had cut his spending by just 5 to 10% in his first 2 bad years. A small sacrifice early on prevents a catastrophe 15 years later when you're forced to sell your house. The income safety net, the Coast Fire strategy. The most powerful defense against sequence of returns risk is creating a flexible income stream during your red zone years. Even if you've already saved your number, working a low-stress job can dramatically reduce the pressure on your portfolio during its most vulnerable years. If Mike had earned just $20,000 annually from part-time consulting work for his first 5 years of retirement, everything would have changed. His necessary portfolio withdrawals would have dropped from $40,000 per year to just $20,000 per year. This massive reduction in withdrawals would have allowed his portfolio to recover from the early losses instead of spiraling downward. This strategy bridges the gap between retirement and true financial freedom by protecting your principal during the danger zone. You achieve financial independence, but work a low-stress job for a few years, knowing that this temporary work protects decades of future retirement security. Understanding the mathematics behind the danger. The reason sequence of returns risk is so dangerous is because of how compounding works in reverse during withdrawals. If you start with $1 million and lose 10%, you have $900,000 left. But when you withdraw $40,000 from that, you're actually withdrawing 4.4% of your current balance instead of 4% of your starting balance. Over many years, these small percentage increases in your withdrawal rate compound exponentially and drain your account faster and faster. This is why the early years matter so much. They set the trajectory for everything that comes after. A single terrible market sequence in years 1 through 3 can doom your entire 30-year retirement plan. The psychological impact of getting unlucky. The psychological toll of sequence of returns risk is absolutely immense because it strikes at precisely the moment when you were supposed to be celebrating your freedom and success. You spent 30 years saving money, hitting your target number, and finally achieving financial independence. Then the market crashes in your first year, and you're forced to watch your life savings shrivel before your eyes. You may feel like you did everything right, followed every rule, and still got crushed by bad luck in the first 5 years. This is one of the most devastating psychological experiences a retiree can face, and it's completely preventable with the right planning. The final truth: sequence risk is manageable. Sequence of returns risk is real, it is brutal, and it has destroyed more retirements than any other single factor. But here's the good news: it is not a death sentence, and it's absolutely not random chance. It's a known mathematical challenge that can be managed and even beaten with proper structure and discipline. You don't need to save $5 million instead of $1 million to be safe. You need to acknowledge the red zone exists and build the proper defenses around it. The bucket system, dynamic withdrawals, and flexible income streams are your weapons against this invisible enemy. Don't let average returns fool you into false security and dangerous assumptions. Your retirement success depends not just on how much you save, but critically on when you retire and how you manage the first decade. Subscribe and show your support. If this exposed a critical risk you didn't know about before, please hit the like button to let me know this was valuable to you. Subscribe to the channel for more strategies designed to help you secure your financial future and avoid the traps that destroy ordinary retirements. Together, we can beat the market's bad timing and build a retirement strategy that actually survives real-world conditions. I'll see you in the next one.